Hey everyone, I am Kat B.
And I'm Angel Street.
And we are the hosts of the webcast UFOT.
But we love coffee and UFOs.
Hi, I'm Stephen Bassett, Executive Director of Paradigm Research Group, and I'm a really big supporter of coffee and UFOs.
In this episode, my guest is Caroline Cory, whose latest film, A Tear in the Sky, successfully captures a genuine UFO, or multiple UFOs, plus a confounding anomaly, perhaps begging the question, is this a time-space anomaly, over the Catalina Channel Island off the coast of California. Now we'll discuss this, Caroline's next chapter, having a close encounter, and more. Welcome back to Coffee and UFOs. I have a very special guest with me today. Her name is Caroline Cory. She is the director of A Tear in the Sky, and she's been a past guest on what was once Paranormal Now to discuss her other documentary, Superhuman. Caroline, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, Alan. I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm fantastic. I really enjoyed your documentary, A Tear in the Sky. So just a little bit about Caroline before we get started. She is an award-winning filmmaker and the visionary author of best-selling books on consciousness, science, and energy medicine. Cory appears at major conferences and television shows, including The Unexplained with William Shatner and History Channel's most popular series, Ancient Aliens. Among several recent accomplishments, her films include Among Us, Superhuman, The Invisible Made Visible, and what we'll be discussing today, A Tear in the Sky. Her films have won multiple film awards and nominations at various festivals around the globe. I really enjoyed A Tear in the Sky. So I have to ask you, since this is a documentary about UFO research, scientific research, I do wonder, did you have a close encounter of your own that may have spurred your desire for hard evidence?
Yeah, I actually had multiple contact experiences, first with beings, believe it or not, more before the whole UFO thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that since I was a kid, I had experiences coming in contact with non-human entities, from angels to extraterrestrials and things like that. I would literally see them and communicate with them spontaneously. It was kind of just happened. I didn't look for it or anything, because as a kid, you don't know, And so that's kind of opened me up to the idea, like, wait, that's not just what we see around us. There are many things out there, beings that could exist and communicate with us. So that's how it started. But then eventually I started to see UFOs, and I had some pretty cool sightings, actually. That's kind of how I got into the field.
Okay. What's more exciting, a sighting, a close sighting, or these like ET contact encounters?
Oh my God, it's actually very different, because with the being, it's fascinating. It's kind of like, it's kind of like, what? Could this being look like this? Or, without a preconceived idea of what they may look like, when you see something like that, it's a very powerful experience, The UFO is intriguing, but there's too many kind of unknown. You start to question, like, when you see a UFO in the sky, you're like, wait, am I seeing this? Is this the, you know what I mean? You're questioning, you're not sure, and then eventually you kind of go, oh yeah, this doesn't make sense. This is a UFO. But the being is like this instant, wow, what is that? So it's very different, and I love them both.
Do you think having those contact experiences hurts the hardcore science that you're also interested in getting evidence and measurable data on UFOs?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very hard to convince anyone from, the hardcore science world that this is real, because a lot of them haven't had, or if not most of them, haven't had an experience themselves. So you're talking to people who don't even have a frame of reference and who have worked, dedicated their whole life to the mainstream science. Like, hey, it's Newtonian physics and that's it. So don't go telling me that a being came out floating in your bedroom and then appeared and disappeared. Like, So it's hard, but it's getting better and better because there's way too much evidence coming up. There's way too many people talking about it and bringing real data to the surface. So we can't all be crazy.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of back in, I don't know, the Middle Ages, when artists were drawing images of lions, but they'd never seen a lion. It was only what other people, traders, explorers had actually seen and reported to them. And those lions looked kind of like lambs with claws, like elephants almost. They kind of cross-mixed their descriptions. And as far as they were concerned, that's what a lion looks like. They were just going on someone else's report. And then it turns out, lions are real. They don't look exactly like those representations, but they're real, or something there. Those people weren't, making up some exotic fantasy. The documentary A Tear in the Sky, I think, highlights obviously the need for data, but some of the scientists that you have, I mean, like in the documentary, you have physicists like Kevin Knuth, David Mason? David Mason?
Dave Mason, yeah.
Dave Mason, yeah. I mean, these are technical and very smart people, and they seem to be open-minded to this. It's not like, I didn't get the sense that, like, a dry sense from them that they're like, I don't believe this is real, but I'm doing this anyway. I got a slight impression like they had already had some kind of inclination that there's something there.
Well, actually, Kevin Knuth and Matthew Shadakis, they are very hardcore scientists. But I believe they had paranormal experiences before. I think Kevin had some sort of experience with cattle mutilation or something, and Matthew had some other experience. So they were open to the idea. But as we were going through the process, we're almost butting heads, because you can't talk about anything that's like consciousness or like maybe we're communicating spontaneous, none of that, like forget it. So, but it was great actually, because that's what this film was about. We wanted just the straightforward hardcore science in this film because that had never been done. And so it worked out actually that they weren't into anything else in this movie anyway. So I mean, that's why we got them, because there's all kinds of other theories out there and things, but the way we went about the story in A Tear in the Sky, the strictly scientific data collecting, that was what made this film very different.
That's cool. And did you feel? I guess you felt comfortable sharing your experiences with them.
Yeah, in the beginning, like, I don't know, maybe still even up to 5 years ago, I was always hesitating, like, can you tell this person this and that, or maybe I shouldn't say, or, but now I don't care. I don't care. Harvard, Stanford, blah, blah. It doesn't matter because I know what I saw. I know what I experienced. And I know I'm very educated. I have advanced university studies and I've done a lot of research on all sorts of stuff. So I may not be a physicist, but I can't deny what happened. So I'm going to speak my truth no matter what, And so I actually challenge a lot of these scientists because, for example, some of them say, wait, well, consciousness, like that, you can't prove that, and that doesn't exist, and you can't communicate telepathically. And it's like, no, there's a lot of evidence that this exists. And by the way, you are a conscious being. The fact that you are a conscious being, there is such a thing as consciousness. Entanglement has been proven. That two particles can communicate at a distance.
Spooky action, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like when you start bringing up these topics, it's harder for them to argue. They'll just say, "Well, I don't believe it," but that's not an argument.
Yeah. Well, they spent a lot. The UAPX team spent a lot of time scoping out the sky. And I'm sure as a director, producer, and writer, you were extraordinarily busy and lacking sleep. Are you a coffee fan as much as I am, or are you more of a tea person?
I'm a coffee person, big time. Okay. We were surviving. It was so hard to make this film. First of all, because everybody, the team, everybody came from a different part of the country. So we had to fly everybody in. And from a production standpoint, like you want to maximize, like you want to do the interviews, you want to do all the B-roll, you want to do everything while everybody's there. So we crammed everything literally in like 10 days. And also because we decided to film at night, because that's when you see the most UFOs. The crew, we were all exhausted. Like, during the day we're preparing. Of course we were prepared, but there's always, when you make a film is so, and also it's a big team. It's not like 3 characters. There's, I don't know, there was 10 of them. Also, we were in 3 locations. That was another thing that hasn't been done before. We were trying to achieve triangulation.
Right. You were purposely trying to achieve, rather than after the fact of an event and people are calling up, did you see? You were in place. So that calls into question, why did you choose, the Catalina Channel, off the coast of California for your investigation, and how is it possible that in such a short period of time you actually caught some really interesting footage?
Yeah, exactly. So it was actually easy to pick that location because originally I wasn't we were open to the idea, but then when we started looking, researching, as a filmmaker, the first thing you do is you research, has anybody done anything like this before, a scientific investigation on UFOs? So as we were searching, the first person I stumbled on is Kevin Day. And so when I talked to Kevin, he said, oh my God, that's been my dream, to do a scientific investigation. In fact, I already have a couple of scientists on my team. And so the team was already most of the team was already there. And so when Kevin told me his story, because he told me some things that he hadn't shared, if you notice in the movie, he shares more than what's out there already. And so when he told me his story, I was so moved. This guy, what he went through. And so then by the time we got to the question, okay, where do we go do the investigation? Because his story ended up, him and Gary and all the folks, they were all from the Nimitz. So we're like, it makes sense. Let's just go back, to the same area.
Well, and that area, there's consistent sightings, year round, right? Yeah.
Exactly. There are other Navy ships as well, USS Kidd, USS Omaha, all in the same area having similar sightings. So it kind of made sense. And it was the 2004, the first sighting, and now 2020, 21, like 15 years later, 16 years later. So it was kind of that sort of thing. And so that's the reason we picked that location. And because we wanted to do it scientifically, we said from the get-go, we need triangulation, we need different angles, we need different tools and devices and things like that. And so that's why it ended up being a super complicated, production.
Do you feel like you achieved your goal?
Yeah. But to answer your question, how is it possible that in 5 days we got so much stuff? Well, two things. Either we got super, super lucky, or this stuff is happening all the time, and we just happen to have the proper equipment, because that's another thing that's missing in ufology. People go out there with a couple of night vision and we went out with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment.
And also, I want to add that you had calibrated equipment that was working in unison. You had cameras, right, but detecting multiple spectrums of light. All of this is not what the military has. The equipment the military has is not designed to be looking for what you guys were looking for, right? So that's lacking. And hopefully, as was indicated in the report last year, maybe they'll actually do something akin to what you guys were doing. Like, okay, how do we calibrate our equipment? What do we need to do so that we can detect these things? So I'm guessing there are probably some people in the government watching your film taking notes. Yeah,
I am sure. Now, having said that, they do have $1 million radars and $1 million FLIR cameras and things like that.
Oh, of course, sure. Yeah.
But like you were saying, they're not calibrated to be looking at these things, and and so that's exactly it, and that's the reason why we ended up capturing so much in such little time. Originally, we were going to go for 10 days. Even 10 days is not that long. I mean, if you think about it, how many people go on expeditions and then they come back like, oh yeah, we saw, but not really, So we were spending thousands of dollars on this production, and it's like, we better come back with something, So, but then 10 days started to get so expensive. And I was like, because I was funding the movie. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Let's just do 5 days. And then if we don't catch anything, then we'll see if we would extend it,
Sure.
And sure enough, I mean, we got the typical things that some people see, but then as you saw in the movie, we got things through the FLIR cameras, industrial grade FLIR cameras in the high infrared spectrum. These are the types of things that the typical, UFO researcher does not own. And so we had 8 of those covering the entire sky, plus, magnetometers, spectrum analyzers. I mean, we had all of these devices happening at the same time. That I think that combined with the fact that we were in 3 locations, combined with the fact that it probably is a phenomenon that's happening all the time, made it that we came back with incredible stuff.
Well, it was mentioned in the documentary, as reported during the Nimitz encounters, that there was these kind of raining Tic Tacs, right? And in the documentary, spoiler alert, everyone, if you don't want to hear this, go watch the documentary first. But you label something a wormhole-like anomaly, and it looks like there's a whole bunch of Tic Tacs within this anomaly, right? So that I'm thinking that totally correlates with the report. But then we can't get into all the scientific details of how they came to their analysis that this is truly an anomaly. It's not a weather phenomena.
Nope.
So what do you think that hole in the cloud was, and all those little dots that you could see were?
Yeah, I mean, people need to realize that these are, like I said earlier, these are hardcore scientists. They're not going to look at something and go, oh, that's it, we found a wormhole. I mean, the first thing we look at, okay, it's a camera glitch, maybe it's this. Like, basically the scientist is going to debunk himself. Like, well, that's what we were doing. Yeah. Maybe it's this, maybe it's this, maybe it's this, maybe it's a coincidence. So what happened is that we checked also other things that may be responsible for this event. And those who have not watched the film, basically it's some sort of cloud or something that opens and closes and reveals reveals a bunch of actual physical reflective objects because we had radar data.
Correct.
And the radar reflects on objects. It doesn't detect light or radiation. And so then we check, maybe it's some sort of solar flare doing some strange thing, nothing checks out. And so what would you call something that opens and closes that correlates with a huge burst of gamma? I mean, that's a correlation.
Yeah, it was another detection, right?
Yeah, something that opens and closes and reveals actual physical objects. And what do you call that? So that's why, we called it wormhole-like. I mean, the idea is of the wormhole, you go in it and you come out of it. So, and just for you to know, even after, I mean, the film is, it's been out now for a while, but, we continue to ask scientists, also from different disciplines,
to look at it.
Yeah, to look at it. Like, and by the way, the movie, we didn't manipulate any. I mean, that's the raw data. I mean, we're happy to actually give the original footage is the same thing as what you see in the film.
That's awesome.
And so, but I mean, so we're not married to the idea, it has to be a UFO. We want to know what it is.
Sure.
So we're asking all sorts of scientists, weather scientists, atmospheric something, anomaly or something. Nobody has any explanation. So then we said, well, maybe we can get satellite images, because we know exactly where it is, how big and what it did. So we started looking into getting satellite images just to have more data. And long story short, nobody, we contacted private organizations and governmental agencies, and nobody could give us those, those images. Either they didn't have them or they didn't want to. So we filed a FOIA request. And we said, well, from the geospatial reconnaissance office, they're responsible for the geospatial, data, collecting the satellite images. And so they come back basically saying, yes, we are the official United States government, satellite, whatever, repository or something. However, the images that you are requesting on that day, these coordinates, that time, we cannot give you because, because it's we got rejected basically because it's classified.
Okay, so then that's a little odd, right? This happens often when there's UFO reports. So the satellite images that you did get, or that to show the reflective surfaces, where did those come from?
That's a radar. That's
radar.
It
was radar. Okay.
Radar. Yeah, that's not satellite.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but we have satellite images of the day before. There's like nothing there, although it's not the exact same time of the day, so we can't. It's not really scientifically accurate. But still, the point is, think about this: like, what could a satellite image reveal in that location that they wouldn't give us?
Yeah, especially. And did you tell them that you had radar data, that there was something in there, or did you not want to tip your hat?
It's one of the people on the team who filed the requests, and so okay. They said you can appeal, and I don't know if that's basically they just need to give us the data we're requesting. We don't need to explain everything else.
Right. But I wonder if you respond and say, well, that's a shame. However, I just want to let you know we have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have images from on the film. I mean, we have something there.
It's honestly.
Yeah. We're trying to correlate it,
Yeah. Because I am watching this, and the skeptic in me always has to pop out, and I'm going, okay, is this edited in a way that I'm like, that it just looks too good Like there are certain like television shows you watch and they edit things in a certain way and makes it look more convincing than something might actually be. But I mean, you've got all these straight up people on your team for this, and obviously multiple devices and measurements. So I believe that there was something legitimate there based on what I've seen and so far what we've discussed. If indeed that there is some kind of wormhole or some anomaly that's allowing the passage of these craft or objects, for lack of a better word, are there any other hotspots that you'd like to go investigate where you think you might find something similar?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm convinced that there are those things. I think there are natural wormholes and there are those that are created by, a craft. And so I think I would love to know where all the wormholes, like the natural ones, are. I'd love to investigate also the area of Joshua Tree. And of course, I mean, speaking of Hudson Valley, you're in Hudson Valley. I mean, Hudson Valley is known for all sorts of things going on there. There's so many areas that I feel there's got to be some sort of wormhole. And Skinwalker Ranch, I was on the ranch myself, and I can tell you there's something there in the sky for sure. And so definitely.
Well, then you definitely have to come out to the Hudson Valley if you continue. We'd love to have you out here. And that said, I kind of got the feeling like, is there a possibility of a series, like a television series coming down the pipeline, or is it just going to be a series of documentaries?
Yeah, this is a kind of a technical question because I have to go by what the latest distribution models are that are the easiest to sell. You know what I mean? It used to be series on television, but now television it's a whole different ballgame with all the platforms, So to answer your question, it seems that it's easier and it's a better format to go one documentary at a time. However, as you can see, it's very easily kind of like to make the sequel. I mean, obviously, we just stumbled on something nobody could figure out. So I am, in fact, in pre-production right now. And
really? That's great. Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to see, just kind of the sequel of, wait, what?
I dig it. Now, since then, and this is the cool thing about doing a sequel, because like you said, you followed up, you've asked other scientists, to look at this objectively. And so far, has anyone offered some kind of plausible explanation?
Nothing. That's what's so crazy, and it's like some explanation could potentially maybe explain the opening and closing, but not the dots, the objects. Or maybe the objects, but then not the opening and close. You know what I mean? Nothing, there's nothing that resembles, anything like it. I mean, we're open to any sort of explanation.
Okay, we're running out of time, so I have to ask you some important questions. Number one, what is your sense about Michio Kaku? Do you think Michio Kaku actually believes that aliens are visiting Earth? Because I'm trying to read between the lines because he speaks kind of in code, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like sometimes he says, if they're out there, they're probably here, But sometimes when he talks about civilizations, type 1, type 2, whatever, I feel like he's saying we're, like nobody's interested in us and they're out there. So I think he goes back and forth, but he's definitely open.
Yeah.
Much more open than he used to be. That's for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If we rewind 15 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely a contrast there. Now, did anyone detect like any actual signals coming from the craft that you guys were measuring?
Which one?
Any of the Tic Tac one, the anomalous, like, was there anything coming out of the craft that is detectable, whether it's acoustical or anything?
So David Mason had the ability to capture light signals and sound signals, but we're trying to be as scientific as possible. So we did capture, but we can't come to any conclusion. We can't say specifically it's this object or this thing or that thing. So we're not there yet. There was one object, the one that we saw, the first one in the movie on Catalina Island, that it was pulsating. It was kind of had a pulsating thing. And so we don't know if this is some sort of, signal or something like that. So we're not there yet.
Okay. So maybe a documentary 2 or 3. We'll find out.
Exactly.
So I have a couple questions real quick from our listeners. So one is from Angel. She is a host of the podcast UFOT. And she says, what do you see as our best option for disclosure? Civilians, military, science and technology, or the ETs themselves?
Look, we are civilians, and in those 5 days, look at the number of data that we collected, hundreds of hours of data, and the government is still telling us, I'm sure you saw the congressional hearing. They're showing us these, videos saying we don't have data and the videos aren't good, blah blah blah, and we're like, well, watch the movie.
Has anyone approached you from the government?
I mean, they were interested in finding out some information. But not like in terms of collaboration or anything. I think it's they want to just know and do their own thing. I think we'll see. But so anyway, I think we are way ahead of what the government wants to reveal. So I feel like the more we continue, the more the government's going to be forced. I mean, they can't keep going out there and saying we can't collect data. I mean, we collected data, So that's why I feel that civilians are going to be the ones to really, really make this happen.
Okay, I feel you. That's why for me, I've been discussing this for years now, and reading books, and a lot of my friends that I've made over the years are field investigators, and I finally was like, that's it. I want to get involved, because I feel like that's where it's at. That whether it's civilians working for this organization, nonprofit, or someone like you doing, productions, where just as long as you have civilians employed, I think that there's a level of transparency that you can't get. And I'm not saying it's necessarily always a bad thing, but you just can't get that with a government investigation. And the last question from UFO Philosophy on Instagram, she asks, is there evidence for, or have you heard of the possibility of ETs communicating through quantum signals?
Of course, that's exactly how they're communicating.
Quantum.
It's all quantum communication, definitely. And also, Well,
I was going to say, what is that like in your?
So anyway, it's they use quantum waves to transfer information, and that's why, for example, we keep waiting for some radio signal to come from some, extraterrestrial civilization out there. I mean, I don't know if they're advanced. I don't think they'll be using radio signals. I mean, do you? If they know how to, travel, if they've mastered, interstellar travel and this and that, I think they're a little bit more advanced also in terms of communication. And I think they are using quantum systems, using quantum waves and gravitational waves to transfer information back and forth. And also now we're getting into, and maybe another step, but the consciousness waves interact with these types of waves. And so that's why a lot of people get like messages and, downloads and things like that, because that is the way to transfer energy as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and one thing I really liked about this documentary was as I was watching the scene where you're kind of, I guess it was like a deck or a rooftop, but there's just all these gadgets laid out, like this hodgepodge almost. Not that it was a hodgepodge, but it reminded me of the movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial, where he kind of like takes all these parts from like 80s, technology and creates this communication device. And when we were kids, we totally emulated that. And we were grabbing whatever, we had at home and we would try to make these communication devices. And I just really appreciated that because, they're as serious as this is, there's something really fun and playful about it that I enjoy.
Totally fun. And, so we did have gadgets all the way, like simple gadgets and things put together all the way to very sophisticated inventions, to very sophisticated military grade stuff. So yeah, that makes it kind of let's try this. And so that's why I'm like so excited about this film, because it's never been done where you put everything, out there that you can think of and go out there and try it. And it worked. So, I'm totally stoked. And
and you had some great guests. You had Travis Taylor, William Shatner. That man is a legend. What is he, 91 now, I think? Something like that. It's like, it's amazing how sharp he is. And yeah.
It was a blast working with him. He's so funny. In fact, behind the scenes, we were like cracking up all the time. But he's so into it. And he loves that, everything that's like mysterious and stuff. So it was great having him as well.
I love that. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming on Coffee and UFOs, Caroline. And if people want to follow you, where do they follow you on social media?
Yeah, Instagram. Just go to Instagram, Caroline Cory, Facebook. I'm everywhere. Facebook, YouTube. We're posting a lot of stuff on YouTube as well. And so I'm everywhere on social media. We're trying to stay out there for sure.
All right. And you can find the movie A Tear in the Sky on, I think actually it's available on Roku, multiple platforms.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
If they want to watch it for free, so they can go to Crackle, Roku, Plex, I think. But it's everywhere. I think the best way to go to is to go to the website, atearinthesky.com.
Okay.
And then they'll click on watch the movie and they'll see all the different platforms.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Caroline, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. This was so fun. See you later.
And cheers to you all. Thank you for joining us for this special episode of Coffee and UFOs. Please follow me on Instagram at Paranormal Now and on Twitter at Paranormal_Now. Until next time, everyone, live in the mystery.